What's going on, guys? In today's video we're going to be installing some Eibach sway bars on the R18. So I started with the back as it's easier and began by removing the heat shield before the resonator. It's necessary to do as the bar behind it will allow you to remove the sway bar. After removing the 3 bolts holding it up, you can move the bar out of the way and move on to the sway bar end links. The proper way to remove the sway bar requires an Allen to hold the end link in place and a 14mm wrench to loosen the bolts. On the other side, I did it incorrectly by twisting the Allen and the wrench, which ended up stripping the end link and requiring it to be replaced. Next, remove the sway bar brackets and it's ready to come off. As you can see, the difference in size of the new sway bar is quite remarkable. Unfortunately, I then realized the R18 requires SI brackets in order to replace the rear sway bar, so I moved on to the front. Put the car on jack stands, removed the wheels, put a jack on the subframe, and soaked all the bolts in WD-40. I began by removing the sway bar from the end links like I did in the rear. Next up, I removed the rear subframe bolts, which are very long and difficult to remove as the bolts are covered in red Loctite. I gave it a shot with the impact, but unfortunately it was no match for the red Loctite. I eventually got it off, but to prove I'm not exaggerating, look at all that Loctite. Next up, I removed the L brackets on both sides of the car and connected the subframe. Afterwards, it was time to loosen the front subframe bolts. It's important not to remove them completely. For reference, I loosened the bolts till I could see the lip on them. Up next, the steering rack bolts and brackets had to be removed. The smaller 14mm bracket bolts were a bit of a challenge to remove and ate through one of my sockets. After coating the bolt multiple times in PB Blaster, it finally came off. Gotta love thread locker. Then I lowered the subframe and removed the sway bar brackets. And the front sway bar is out. The difference on the new one isn't as significant, but the adjustability is fantastic. Then on goes the new sway bar. I lubed up the new bracket bushings and slipped them on. Sliding the sway bar onto the end links makes the brackets much easier to align. And of course you gotta re-thread lock all of the bolts so they don't rattle loose. I then reattach the steering rack and bracket before jacking up the subframe back in place. Once the subframe is in place, I reinstalled all the bolts and brackets in the reverse order. When reinstalling the bar to the end links, I chose to run the softer setting up front as my main issue is understeer. Then the jack stands come off and it's time to finish up the rear. The stock brackets are removed and replaced with wider SI ones. After that, the sway bar pretty much bolts right up. I then bolt the bar back up as well as the heat sink. On the rear, I chose to run the stiff setting. And the car is ready to test on the road. Driving through Carbon Canyon, I could immediately feel how much more planted and grippy the car was.
Now, unfortunately, after that drive, I ran into some issues with the car. Apparently, the supercharger was sitting a little too close to the alternator and it shorted the car. And after I fixed that issue, I came to find out that my tensioner had gone bad as I could not get the belt on. So, if you guys were wondering why this video took so long to come out, that's why. But the car is all back together now and ready to hit the track. While the car was down, however, I finally decided to get a new daily. I will be making a video on that and my plans for it shortly. All I'll tell you guys for now though is that it's a V6 twin turbo car. So that's all I have for you guys today. Be on the lookout for the next track day video where I put these sway bars to the test. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe. Also, feel free to comment on what you think my new car is, and I will see you guys on the next one.